Hello Dungeon Masters, welcome to Arcadia. This is the DM's Den. This video is for DMs but also for writers and all storytellers in general. I will discuss a fundamental advice acknowledged by most successful authors, but that for some reason I never heard anyone talk about in the RPG world. I call them narrative promises. Whether you're writing a book or a D&D campaign, there is one thing that good storytellers must always be aware of: the promises they are making to their audience. Everything you write or everything you describe in your game is suggesting a promise to your players. If you open your campaign with, "The times have never been darker since the Mind Flayers took over," even if your players are at level 1, even if they are perfectly aware that their first mission has nothing to do with Mind Flayers, that it was just setting description, from the moment you mention them, you are making a narrative promise. And your players' expectations are that, sooner or later, they will face Mind Flayers. Maybe it's only a few levels ahead. Maybe they're only the final bosses. But from the moment you mention them, you are planting in your players' brains the expectation that somehow Mind Flayers will be relevant for the campaign. Now, here's the important part. This sums up the whole video. In fact, you wouldn't need to watch the rest if you didn't want any more details. The rule is, for every promise you make, be sure to have a fulfillment. In other words, whatever expectation you give to your players, make it happen. This is vital in storytelling. Your most important promise will obviously be about your central tension. If you're running Rise of Tiamat, just the name is a promise that the final boss is Tiamat and that the players will get to fight her. If you tell your players that your game is about a group of humanoids enslaved by the Drow that must break free and fight their way back to the surface, you are promising them a game about a hard journey through the Underdark, eventually a return to the surface, maybe a dungeon crawl in the middle. Be sure to deliver on those. If you don't, your players will either feel frustrated and disappointed, or they'll keep trying to push in that direction, forcing you to railroad them back into your idea of the right plot, which is never a good practice. But your central tension is not the only promise you must pay attention to. For example, did you write about an NPC sharing a romantic moment with a player character? Something as simple and cliché as them dropping the books and then blushing as the character helps to pick them up? That is a promise of a romantic subplot between them. Did you describe an ancient tower in the distance when you were depicting the landscape to your players during travel time? You are promising to them that there's interesting stuff inside. There's a chandelier in the ceiling. That's a promise that you can make it fall down or swing around on it doing acrobatics. It can be something as simple as handing your players a map of the land where you've drawn a mountain with a little dragon on top. To you, it could have been just a simple decoration to the map, but to your players, it's also a promise. "Ooh, this mountain is a dragon lair. There could be gold and treasure inside." This advice is applicable to both RPGs and writing, but there are slight differences between the two mediums. In prose, everything you write must mean something, so these narrative promises gain an even bigger weight. If you suggest the slightest romantic tension between two characters, you are honor-bound to develop that. After all, if it won't lead anywhere, then what was the point of wasting words describing it? In writing, every word counts. In RPGs, though, the players are not obligated to follow up on every single promise you make. That's one of the beauties of the game, the ability to choose your own path. Not every promise in D&D demands the same execution. So, to help me with this distinction, I find it useful to divide narrative promises in 3 groups: active promises, passive promises, and independent promises. Active promises are the ones that have a life of their own and actively seek out the players. These will be 100% of the promises in writing, because the readers can choose not to engage with them unless they stop reading the book, right? Examples of this include the street urchin that tried to steal from the rogue, was caught and developed an admiration for them, the NPC who has a crush on one of the characters, or the angry drunk that was punched in the face and left the tavern promising revenge. With these, you are promising a certain future development for each of those. The urchin could ask to be the rogue's apprentice, the infatuated NPC could make a move, and the punch dude could just set up an ambush. These are the easiest type of promises, because all we need to do is make sure that we fulfill them. We cannot leave these promises unfinished, or else we will let down the players waiting for a payoff. Passive promises are things that the players can take advantage of or explore in any way, but unlike active promises, they don't act. They're just there, waiting for the players to engage with them if they so choose. Plot hooks normally fall under this category. Think about the mysterious tower you describe in the distance, the location of a buried treasure, the rumor that the city regent is corrupt, or even something as simple as a table in the middle of a dungeon room. All of these can be engaged by the players, but unlike in writing, the players may choose not to follow them, because it's up to them. Here, we only need to assure fulfillment if the players actively engage with the promise itself. Otherwise, we would just be railroading them. Most often than not, these will be bonus content, things that will improve the story if used but aren't vital to it. Here, fulfilling the promise is not making sure it is explored, but rather giving the opportunity for the players to do that. In passive promises, it's also important to stay open to the players' ideas on how they want to engage with them. I mean, sure, your initial plan for that table in the middle of the dungeon could have been to have the kobolds jump on top of it to have advantage over the players because of the height, but the players can also do that. They can even choose to smash a kobold through the table. They can turn it around and use it as a shield, or throw it away as an improvised area of effect attack. You promise that you can interact with that object and make cool stuff with it. What the characters actually end up doing is for the players to decide. Finally, independent promises are like passive ones in the sense that they won't actively engage with the players. However, they are not static. Until the player engages with them, they have a life of their own, and they are developing, and their outcome can even change based on how long the PCs take to get to it. For example, the evil overlord that is building an army to conquer the world, the undead horde that is sieging a nearby village, a known NPC that is sinking into depression, or a rival party of adventurers competing for the same job. The trick to independent promises is to have them behaving as passive promises, but keeping track of its consequences over time. And also be aware that something may happen that triggers a change in their behavior and turns them into active promises instead, like the characters killing a lieutenant of the evil lord, who then goes after them. Regardless of the type of promise, but mainly about the ones with more impactful consequences to your story, one of the worst things you can do as a storyteller is denying your audience their payoff, or specifically in RPGs, not allowing the players to engage with your content because that content was not engageable. If it exists, it's a promise, and all promises presume a fulfillment. The disappointment of a failed promise can be enough to stain your story even if everything else was really well made. For example, I recently read The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. I absolutely loved his writing style, the detail of his world, the magic system, everything really. But throughout the book, we are led to believe that there is this big conflict coming between the main character and this other jackass. We are told quite early that eventually he will be expelled from his school. We are promised that he will make some significant progress in his quest for vengeance against the evil guys. And none of those happen in the book. The climax is almost entirely unrelated to the main plot of the book, and even though there are 2 other books in the series, I couldn't help but feel bittersweet, like I bought an incomplete book where the final chapters are missing. And this is with a story that is masterfully written. Imagine if it wasn't. If you're looking for examples in RPGs, look no further than Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. One of the things that I saw the most in advertisement for that campaign were the infernal war machines, these awesome looking hellfire-fueled rigs. Hell, there's even a premium miniature for that in the WizKids official collection. I kept imagining there would be this cool chapter in the book where the players had to engage with one of these war machines in the battlefields of Avernus. See what I did there, by the way? I, as a player, am assuming a payoff from the promise the campaign made. Do you know how many times the campaign gives you the chance to ride one of these things? 0. If I recall correctly, I think the most you get is like a hell bike or something, which is still pretty awesome, don't get me wrong, but I was promised Mad Max in hell, and in return, I got a spiky bicycle. The main lesson here is this: when you make a promise, fulfill it. Either make it relevant for your story, or at least admit the possibility that your players might want to investigate in that direction. This advice might apply more to writing than to D&D, but one tool that delivers very good results is making a list of promises. I do this all the time. When you're writing your book or your campaign, every suggestion of a cool thing that you make, you write it down. Then, when you finish the campaign or the book, you revisit the list. Did you fulfill all those promises? If not, you need to go back and correct it. And note that fulfilling the promise means making it relevant to the story. You shouldn't feel forced to resolve it in a specific way. For example, a romantic interaction between two characters doesn't need to end in a relationship. It can end in a tragic breakup or a painful split due to moving away. It can only be a secondary plot for the coming betrayal of one of those characters who is actually an enemy saboteur. The goal isn't to have a predictable plot, but your promises must mean something. Whenever you introduce something to your story, always ponder, why am I including this here? How can this make my story better? As a quick finishing note, we have been talking a lot about every promise demanding a fulfillment, but the corollary of this premise is also true. Just as people will expect promises to be fulfilled, they will also assume that behind every fulfillment, or behind every climax, there will be a promise leading up to that. And they will actively look for that promise to guide themselves, just like adventurers scrambling for plot hooks. This is particularly visible in romance movies. As soon as the movie starts, people will immediately try to figure out who will be the love interest of the main character. And once that promise is identified, it's all about enjoying the ride until fulfillment. Use this when writing your book or your campaign. Plant small promises here and there that will lead up to the main climax of your story to help steer your audience towards the main goal and enhance the emotion of the final payoff. Dear friends, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please drop a comment down below. If you'd like to see my art, I point you towards my social media pages. Sometimes there's D&D stuff in there too. And if you'd like to support this channel, please share your favorite video with your friends. I'm the first Arcadian. Carpe diem. Seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary.